So before we begin, we'd like to thank the judge and fellow competitors for allowing this debate over a rather important topic to occur. We, the Affirmative, would like to focus upon the nation of Mexico and the epidemic that is quite literally killing it. President Peña Nieto said that in order to care for the planet, our shared home and common heritage, it is essential that we adopt the inclusive green growth paradigm, as established by the National Development Plan 2013-2018. Inclusive green growth is the great promise of a better future for humanity. It is the ability to grow and create wealth without damaging our environment or our natural heritage, he added. This reveals the level of attention that is being gravitated toward the pollution problem. However, attention is not sufficient. The problems are not being solved. The number of problems is diverse and extreme, as illustrated by the inherency. So inherency, subpoint A. Since 1992, Mexico's environment has been one of the worst in the world and is getting worse. From Hitler in 1998. In 1992, the United Nations describes Mexico City's air as the most polluted on the planet. 6 years later, that air earned Mexico the reputation of the most dangerous city in the world for children, a reputation Mexico has been working hard to improve. But despite more than a decade of stringent pollution control measures, a haze hangs over the city most days, obscuring the surrounding snow-capped mountains and endangering the health of its inhabitants. Many factors have contributed to this situation: industrial growth, a population boom from 3 million in 1950 to some 20 million today, and the proliferation of vehicles. More than 3.5 million vehicles, 30% of them are 20 years old, now ply the streets. Subpoint B is the serious pollutants are PM10 and ozone. From Hitler in 1998, PM10 comes from various sources including road construction and dust, diesel trucks and buses, forest fires, and the open air burning of refuse. Both pollutants can irritate eyes, cause or aggravate respiratory and cardiovascular ailments, and lead to premature death. Subpoint C, Mexico's geography makes the pollution even more deadly. From Hitler in 1998, located in the crater of an extinct volcano, Mexico City is about 2,240 meters above sea level. The lower atmospheric oxygen levels at this altitude cause incomplete fuel combustion and engines and higher emissions of carbon monoxide and other compounds. Intense sunlight turns these into higher than normal smog levels. In turn, the smog prevents the sun from heating in the atmosphere enough to penetrate the inversion layer, blanketing the city. Based on these problems and the status quo and their significance that are about to be read, the Affirmative insists that the United States federal government should increase its economic engagement towards Mexico by providing the Mexican government with $100 billion in pollution control equipment over the next 5 years for the purposes of implementing a clean air program based on the United States Clean Air Act of 1970. Advantage 1 is human life. Subpoint A, significance. Mexico's environment is killing its people. This from the Expatriate 2013. Pollution causes 14,000 deaths a year in Mexico. The Clean Air Institute just published an alarming report on the air quality in Latin America. Mexico comes second to Brazil as the country with the most deaths every year caused by pollution. Mexico City has long been plagued by smog, but according to the report, Monterrey is the city with the highest levels of particle pollution in all of Latin America. The concentration of PM10 per cubic meter is 85.9 micrograms in Monterrey. The European Union limits member countries to maintain levels under 40 micrograms per cubic meter. Ozone is a gas made up of oxygen atoms and is highly reactive. We need it in the atmosphere to protect us from UV rays, but it's dangerous when it comes in more direct contact with living tissue. According to Air Info Now, the properties that make ozone a powerful cleaner, disinfectant, and bleaching agent also make ozone dangerous to living tissues. When it comes in contact with living tissues like our lungs, ozone attacks and damages cell linings in the airways. This causes swelling and inflammation. Some have compared ozone's effects to the sunburn inside your lungs. Pollution has been linked to a wide array of serious health problems, including cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, cancer, premature birth, and low birth rate, lung disease, and early death syndrome. Subpoint B is solvency. Clean Air Act saves lives. This is from EPA.gov 2014. According to the 1997 EPA report to Congress, the first 20 years of the Clean Air Act programs from 1970 to 1990 led to the prevention in the year of 1990 of 205,000 premature deaths, 672,000 cases of chronic bronchitis, 21,000 cases of heart disease, 843,000 asthma attacks, 189,000 cardiovascular hospitalizations, 10.4 million lost IQ points in children from lead reductions, and 18 million child respiratory illnesses. This is to impact the fact that we are helping a whole bunch of people's lives with this plan. So advantage 2 is reduction of global warming. Subpoint A is significance. Pollution leads to the warming of the earth. The warming of the planet leads to extinction, nuclear warfare, economic collapse, ocean collapse, disease spread, species collapse, water wars, famine, terrorism, African instability, and Middle Eastern instability. This is from Warnstorm in 2008. Human activities are altering the climate. This can be broken into 2 parts. The first is as follows. Global climate is warming. Temperatures over the past 10 years clearly indicate where the warmest since measured records have been available. These events are examples of large natural climate variations on multi-year timescales, and by releasing heat from the ocean, generally cause positive anomalies in global mean temperature. Temperature of the northern hemisphere during the past millennium was clearly visible from satellites as the shrinking Arctic sea ice cover, which has declined 20% since satellite observation began in 1979. New analysis of proxy data for northern hemisphere indicates the increase in temperature in the 20th century is likely to have been from the largest in any century in the past 1,000 years. Warming causes extinction. This is from Henderson in 06. The scientific debate about human-induced global warming is over. Policymakers, let alone the happily shopping general public, still seem not to understand the scope of the impending tragedy. Global warming isn't just warmer temperatures, heat waves, melting ice, and threatened polar bears. Scientific understanding increasingly points to runaway global warming leading to human extinction. If impossible, draconian security measures are not immediately put in place to keep further emissions of greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere, we're looking at the deaths of millions, and this end of civilization as we know it, and all probably end of man's several million-year-old existence. Subpoint B is policy. Reducing pollutants in the air stops global warming. This is from Maxwell Management 2013. By encouraging Mexico to follow suit and by assisting with technical and policy expertise, the U.S. would be contributing to global climate efforts. It would also be helping to clean up the air in U.S. communities situated along the Mexican border, since airflow does not respect political boundaries. Nobel Peace Prize winner Mario Molina agrees that the government should do more. From the WashingtonPost.com, if the government decides to do something about it, it can be done, said Nobel Peace Prize winning expert Mario Molina. There's really no excuse not to do more. Advantage 3 is stopping the pollution gives free power to the U.S. and more jobs to Mexico. The significance is Mexico is trying to help the U.S. with its energy, but its power sources create pollution, so they can't. From Weiner 2005. Here on the edge of Mexicali, a few miles from the California border, two huge power plants are riding in the desert, near a graveyard and a clutch of hovels. They will generate billions of watts for millions of Californians, a handful of jobs for Mexicans, and pollution on both sides of the border. The plants will be the first of many built in Mexico, specifically to provide power for the United States, says Mexico's Energy Secretary Ernesto Martins, and that represents a new phase in relations between the two nations. He said the Energen plant would send more than 30,800 tons of pollutants in the air. Except for a smaller plant would emit 1/10 that much. Subpoint B is solvency. Fixing the amount of toxins that would come from the Mexican power plants would give the U.S. more energy, provide Mexicans with jobs, and better relations. This is from Weiner 2005. The second plant, built by Sempra Energy based in San Diego, can conceivably have been built there, but at greater cost to its owners, who would have to pay to offset what pollution it would create. All but 600 megawatts will go to California. A megawatt is roughly enough electricity for up to 1,000 homes. The plants together can power more than 1 million California homes. Basically what this advantage is saying that is Mexico is trying to give us energy, but the problem is it's produced pollution, and we won't accept their energy unless they follow our pollution guidelines. So by sending them these pollution control equipment, they'll be able to produce this energy for us, and we don't have to pay a thing. Besides the fact that we're investing in the first place. Advantage 4, reducing pollutants saves U.S. citizens' hospital visits. The significance is U.S. citizens spend $760 million a year on doctor visits. Subpoint B, solvency. Reducing PM10 by 10% would result in savings in lives saved. From Hibble in 1998, reducing both ozone and PM10 by just 10% would result in average savings of $760 million a year. In human terms, that would translate to into 33,287 fewer emergency room visits in 2010 and 4,188 fewer hospital admissions for respiratory distress. In addition, it would lead to 266 fewer infant deaths a year. And advantage 5 is helping Mexico increase its relations, stops anti-Americanism, and stops future terrorist attacks. And I'm not going to get through this whole thing, but in past years, America's ability to, this is from O'Hanlon and Trace in 13, in past years, America's ability to protect itself and advance its global interests often depends as much on its softer power as it does on our nation's armed forces. For example, through Latin American countries, though Latin American countries were themselves primarily responsible for progress and the headway many of them made in stabilizing their countries in recent years, it has been a big plus for American security too, and American aid had a role in that process. Subpoint B is anti-Americanism causes terrorism, and I'll read a card in my next speech. And the subpoint C is solvency. If it isn't obvious that Mexico is giving money, would make them like us more. Here's a microcosm on the human level of Psychology magazine 2008. Pretty much, it basically states that if you give people money, they become happy, and I'll read that card later too. And final, the point in that is happiness leads is soft power, and there's a card explaining why it's soft power. I'm now looking for cross-sects. Yep.
Okay, so what exactly is this Clean Growth Future Plan? Like, what does it do?
Okay, so basically the paradigm is not necessarily a plan. It's the mentality of the Mexican people that they want to start working on the pollution. The plan is actually the plan that we're trying to implement is a plan based on the Clean Air Act of 1970 that was produced in the United States.
Okay, so how are you going to be solving this pollution?
For solving the pollution, we're producing, giving $100 billion to give this pollution control equipment to Mexico, which it goes on their factories. It helps. Later on, we'll do actual implementation of the plan, but.
Okay, so this plan, if we pass the plan today, it's not going to be the implementation, right?
I'm confused about your question.
So you say this will happen with the implementation later. So what happens right now since you pass?
Oh no, I'm saying when I say implementation, I say my partner's going to bring up the implementation as next speech. Sorry.
Okay. So basically, you're going to be inserting these like pollution reducer machines.
Well, there's lots of different things you do. One, there's filters you put on the fuel stacks of the factories, and there's also stuff you do with the way the energy is produced. Like I said, there's going to be implementation next speech.
Are you going to be going to renewable energies?
No, it's just cleaning the air or the pollution that is caused from the already.
Okay, how are you going to solve for this? Because, or let's phrase it this way: like, how long will it take for you to solve for this pollution?
Our plan says that it'll be in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years, you can be solving for Mexico's pollution.
Yeah, because basically they're using the plan that we already have enacted, so it's easy to copy it into Mexico.
And so in the next 5 years, you will be implementing everything, and pollution will be cleaned up.
Yes. Well, no, it won't be, pollution will not be cleaned up. We're implementing our plan. Over time, this will...
Okay, so how long will it take for this pollution to be cleaned up? Because pollution is the problem.
Well, pollution will always exist, but we're trying to decrease the amount of pollution which helps save these lives.
So how much pollution do you have to decrease to save these lives?
Well, just putting these filters on there, like we said, decreases PM10 by at least 10%, which saves, we read earlier, a lot of lives. I read it earlier. I can give you my sheets.
That's fine.
Okay.
So basically your plan is to install these filters to...
It's not just filters. I'll give more information next speech. I just want to make that clear. It does involve filters, though.
Okay. So it's multiple things to clean up this pollution.
Correct.
Okay, so how exactly will you just solve for Mexico's pollution? Well, isn't the area that is in Mexico the same as the area that's in the rest of the world?
Well, what I'm saying is they don't have a Clean Air Act right now. The Clean Air Act I'm talking about is the one that was implemented in the United States, and we're going to try and implement that in Mexico.
So it's going to be the same exact thing, except it's going to be in Mexico, not in the United
Correct.
States. Okay, so what are your advantages then? Besides, like, you talk about how power to the United States and jobs to Mexico, what does that mean? Like, how, is that going back to the renewables then?
No, what that advantage is talking about is Mexico is creating these energy plants that are going to provide us with energy, but they can't use them because it's producing pollution